In his first public statements tonight, Governor Gavin Newsom says that he felt real shock and deep concern following the arrest of his former chief of staff last week. Dana Williamson is facing 23 federal charges, including fraud. There are a lot of new developments in this case involving Williamson's alleged co-conspirators. ABC's Jeannie Nguyen is here to break down the alleged scandal shaking up the state capitol.
Alex, one of the co-conspirators, Sean McCluskie, just pled guilty for his role in the alleged scandal to siphon funds from a dormant campaign account belonging to Xavier Becerra. McCluskie was Becerra's chief of staff at the time. The other person in this case, Greg Campbell, has reportedly closed down his lobbying business. I spoke with campaign experts on both sides of the aisle about what could happen next.
In federal court on Thursday, Sean McCluskie pled guilty for one count related to a scheme to steal funds from a dormant campaign account belonging to then U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra. McCluskie, who was Becerra's chief of staff, Dana Williamson, and Greg Campbell are accused of conspiring to steal about $225,000 from Becerra's account.
And for him to say, well, I didn't really know what it was spending, it makes him look like either an out-of-touch leader or a participant.
Becerra is not accused of any wrongdoing in this case. He says the news is a gut punch. Republican strategist Tab Berg believes this will hurt his current run for governor.
Because that shows that either he's a laissez-faire leader who doesn't care that much about the money, or he's just so sloppy that we can't really trust him to be in charge of the public purse.
Democratic strategist Andrew Acosta believes Becerra still has a chance in this race.
This was nothing Becerra could do. The person doesn't work for him. He couldn't fire him today. It's sort of done and dusted for him. Now he just has to tell the truth and move on.
When it comes to how Becerra responded, Acosta says he would have preferred more emotion.
I would hope that he'd be, forceful and maybe even a little angry about this, because, these are people that have worked for him and, he had relationships with.
Alleged co-conspirator Campbell is a longtime lobbyist and owner of Campbell Strategy and Advocacy. He has reportedly closed down his business. On Thursday, his company's website shows it's no longer online. Campaign finance records with the state shows his business has been paid more than $3.3 million this year, with clients ranging from Amazon and TikTok to the city of Fresno, the Downtown Sacramento Partnership, Major League Baseball, and PG&E. Williamson was Governor Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff, while the alleged scheme began before she became the governor's chief of staff. In a new statement, Newsom says his first reaction was real shock and deep concern, adding she was placed on leave when he learned about the investigation and, quote, "I wasn't privy to any of the details as it unfolded, and this is not the kind of thing I'm used to seeing in public service. I hold our team to very high standards of ethics and accountability, and I'm still processing the seriousness of the allegations."
Williamson has already pled not guilty to her 23 federal charges. Campbell is expected to enter a guilty plea next month. Alex.
All right, Jeannie, thank you for that update. And to continue this conversation, I want to go ahead and bring in Capitol Weekly editor-in-chief Rich Eisen. Rich, thank you so much for being here again with us so soon. Yeah. Now, we are already seeing rival candidates in the governor's race, like Antonio Villaraigosa, really leveraging this moment in ads. What potential impact do you think that this case could really have on Becerra's gubernatorial campaign, if any?
Well, I mean, it's not going to help it, that's for sure. I mean, when you're running to be the governor of the state of California, and especially what he's been running on is, that he's got these great bona fides as a leader of big things, the Department of Justice here in the state of California, the human
Health and Human Services
Health
Secretary.
and Human Services, thank you, I couldn't get it out. Those are big things. Those are, lots of employees, all that kind of thing. And then, your rivals are going to get to pound you and say, yeah, but you didn't know someone was stealing out of your account. I mean, it is going to have an impact, I think.
Questions that he's really had to answer this week.
Yeah.
How could this case affect Governor Newsom's image and also a viability as a presidential candidate, if he does decide to, in fact, run both within California and nationally? Do you think it's going to have an impact?
I think it's going to depend a little bit on what, if anything, else comes out that might, be tied to him. I think the real question is on judgment and vetting and all of those things, and I think he's going to get hammered on that a little bit. I think the thing that favors him, though, is there's still a pretty long runway between now and 2028.
Yeah.
So unless it gets demonstrably worse for him in terms of any connection to it, I think he'll probably still be okay.
Okay. And then last question here, with Governor Newsom's former chief of staff under investigation, as we've been talking about, and just yesterday, the Legislative Analyst Office, projected an $18 billion budget deficit here for California next year. Do you think that these issues are really going to follow Democrats? And do you think it's going to be a challenge for, California Democrats as, the primaries are coming up in 2026?
Affordability has been the word of the day around the Capitol for the last year or so. And and that's fine, but, press conferences don't lower grocery prices or, energy bills. They're going to have to really deliver. Now, they did a little bit of this last year, but absolutely. I mean, the pocketbook is going to drive a lot of voters, and, they're the majority party. They are going to be the ones held accountable if, there's only so many things they can do, in all fairness, but they are definitely going to have to make that the focal point again in this next legislative session.
All right, Rich, as always, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. And this is a story we will continue to follow.